My wife left me for being poor, then invited me to her wedding. My arrival shocked her, my revenge. The envelope arrived on a Wednesday, buried beneath a stack of unpaid bills. Its thick ivory paper, embossed in gold, looked so out of place among the dull gray envelopes of overdue notices that for a second, I thought it had been delivered to the wrong man. Then I saw her name, Melissa, written in that elegant script I once traced across birthday cards and love notes. My stomach turned. Inside was a wedding invitation. Her wedding invitation. I read it twice, as if repetition might soften the absurdity. Melissa Taylor and Charles Whitman request the honor of your presence. The words felt like a slap dressed in silk. She had left me 2 years ago because, in her own words, love doesn't pay the bills. Now she wanted me to celebrate her marriage to the man she'd left me for, the man whose penthouse I used to fix leaking pipes in. For a long moment I just stood there, holding the invitation as memories flooded back. The way her laughter once filled our tiny apartment. The smell of cheap coffee and rain. The sound of her voice, promising forever while we shared dreams too fragile for the world we lived in. Back then I believed in her. I believed in us. I was a construction foreman then, hardworking, proud, earning enough to keep a roof over our heads. But when the company collapsed, so did everything else. I lost my job, my confidence, and eventually, my marriage. Melissa started coming home later, her perfume sharper, her smile distant. One night, she told me she couldn't keep living like this. The next morning, her side of the closet was empty. That was the last time I saw her, until this envelope. Now, standing in the silence of my apartment, I felt something strange stirring beneath the anger. Not sadness. Not longing. Something quieter, colder, clarity. She had left me because I was poor. That much had been clear. But she didn't know what happened after she walked away. She didn't know how loss reshapes a man, how the weight of humiliation can become fuel. I turned the invitation over, reading the venue's name, the Whitman Estate, Saturday, 6 p.m. The irony almost made me laugh. 2 years ago, I couldn't afford a suit without a stain. Now, things were different. Very different. I slipped the invitation back into its envelope and set it on the table. The decision formed before I could second-guess it. I would go. Not for forgiveness. Not even for closure. I would go because sometimes the only way to bury the past is to face it, dressed in the success the world said you'd never have. And when Melissa saw me again, I wanted her to remember every promise she broke. Every word she sold for comfort. Every piece of me she traded for gold. Melissa and I met in a coffee shop that smelled faintly of burnt sugar and possibility. She was studying architecture. I was there to repair a broken light fixture. I remember how she smiled when I handed her the cup she'd dropped. A small, accidental moment that somehow rewired both our lives. We were young, reckless, and full of plans. I promised her a house by the sea. She promised to fill it with light. For a while, we believed those promises could survive anything, even the slow erosion of reality. But love changes when bills stack up. When the car breaks down and the rent is due. When dreams become numbers that never quite add up. The night everything fell apart is carved into my memory. It was raining hard and relentless, the kind of rain that makes the world feel smaller. I came home soaked, carrying groceries I could barely afford. Melissa sat by the window, phone in hand, her eyes red from crying or exhaustion, maybe both. "We can't keep living like this, Ethan," she said quietly. "Every month, it's the same struggle. You deserve better. I deserve better." The words were soft, but they cut deep. I wanted to tell her that things would change, that I just needed more time. But I saw the suitcase by the door before I could speak. "Who is he?" I asked. My voice was barely a whisper. She didn't deny it. She just looked away, shame flickering across her face like lightning. "It's not about him," she said. "It's about us. About what we've become." And with that, she was gone. I spent months drowning in the silence she left behind. A silence that filled every corner of our apartment, every thought I tried to escape. I blamed her, then myself, then life itself. But pain is a teacher. It strips you bare, forces you to rebuild from the bones. I started working small construction jobs, then took a risk on a startup my friend was building. Long nights turned into small victories. Small victories became something bigger. Somewhere along the way, I stopped checking her social media. I stopped wondering what she was doing. Until that invitation arrived. Now, as I stood before the mirror, adjusting the cufflinks I'd once thought only rich men wore, I realized how much had changed. I wasn't the man she left. Not anymore. Yet beneath the polished exterior, a part of me still wanted answers. Did she ever miss what we had? Did she ever think of the man who once held her through sleepless nights and promised her forever? I didn't know. But I intended to find out. And something in my reflection, the calm in my eyes, the edge in my smile, told me she wouldn't be ready for what she was about to see. The Whitman estate looked more like a palace than a home, marble columns, fountains dancing in the sunlight, and a driveway lined with imported roses. The kind of place Melissa used to admire in magazines, whispering, "One day, then one day." Now, one day had come, just not with me. I parked my Aston Martin near the entrance, the engine's low purr drawing curious glances from the guests filtering through the grand doors. Each of them was dressed like wealth was a religion, and they were its faithful disciples. Inside, chandeliers spilled gold light across the ballroom. Waiters glided like shadows, balancing crystal trays. I felt a strange calm, the kind that comes before a storm you know you're ready for. Then I saw her, Melissa. For a moment, the world tilted. She was radiant, wrapped in ivory silk that shimmered like morning frost. Her laughter floated through the room, soft, practiced, perfect. But when her eyes found mine, everything in her expression shattered. "Ethan," she breathed, her voice barely a whisper. "Hello, Melissa," I said evenly. "You look well." She blinked, stunned. "You came." "I did," I replied. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." Before she could respond, a tall man with a perfectly tailored suit appeared beside her, Charles Whitman. I'd seen his face in magazines, the golden investor, the man whose smile could sell anything. "Darling," he said, placing a possessive hand on her waist. "Who's this?" Melissa hesitated, eyes darting between us. "An old friend." "Ah," Charles said, extending his hand with a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. "Good to meet you." I took his hand, firm but calm. "Ethan Clark." Something flickered behind his confident expression, recognition, maybe discomfort. It didn't matter. I had already seen enough. The ceremony began soon after. Music swelled, guests took their seats, and I watched from the back as vows were exchanged under a canopy of white roses. Each word Melissa spoke felt rehearsed, elegant, hollow, transactional. When she said, "I promise to love you always," our eyes met for a fraction of a second. The silence between us said everything. She knew the price of that promise. At dinner, I blended in easily. Years had taught me how to wear success like armor, how to speak their language, how to smile without giving anything away. But beneath the polite conversation, my pulse was steady, deliberate. I wasn't there to cause a scene. I was there to be seen. When the MC invited guests to share a few words about the couple, my moment arrived. I stood, every eye following me. Melissa's face paled. "I didn't plan to speak tonight," I began, my tone measured, calm. But seeing Melissa this happy, I just couldn't resist. A ripple of curiosity spread through the room. She froze, lips trembling. And as I looked into her eyes, those same eyes that once saw my dreams as small, I knew the next words I spoke would change everything. A hush fell over the ballroom as I stepped toward the microphone. My reflection glimmered faintly in the polished glass behind the head table, calm, controlled, unreadable. "I've known Melissa for years," I began, my voice steady. "Long before the champagne, the chandeliers, or the perfect photographs. Soft laughter rippled through the crowd, uncertain but polite. I knew her when happiness didn't come wrapped in gold, I continued. When the sound of rain on a tin roof was enough to make her smile. Back then, we believed love could carry us through anything. Melissa's hands tightened around her bouquet. Her eyes pleaded silently, "Stop." "But life," I said, pausing, "has a way of teaching you what love truly costs. Sometimes it costs everything you thought you were." The guests listened closely now. Even Charles had turned toward me, curiosity flickering behind his polished grin. "Some people learn that lesson and grow stronger," I said. "Others simply find someone wealthier to shoulder their fears." A murmur passed through the crowd. Melissa's expression turned pale. I smiled gently, letting the tension hang in the air just long enough to sting. But I suppose that's the beauty of second chances. They reveal what the first one was really worth. The MC shifted uncomfortably, but before he could intervene, I raised my glass. "So, to Melissa and Charles, may your love be everything money can buy." Applause followed, polite but uneasy. I returned to my seat, calm and deliberate, leaving a silence thick enough to drown in. Melissa avoided my gaze for the rest of dinner. When the music began again, she found me standing by the balcony doors. "Ethan," she said sharply, pulling me aside. "What was that supposed to mean?" I met her eyes, the years between us collapsing into one brittle moment. It meant what it sounded like. "You came here to humiliate me?" "No," I said softly. "I came to remind you of what you threw away." Her expression wavered. "You think you're better now? You think money fixes everything?" "No," I replied. "But it's funny, isn't it? You left me because I had nothing. And now, I own the company your husband works for." The color drained from her face. "You're lying." I handed her my business card, the logo unmistakable. "I'll expect Charles at Monday's board meeting. We'll be discussing new leadership." She stood frozen, eyes wide, lips parting but no words escaping. I leaned close, voice low but calm. "Don't worry, Melissa. I won't ruin you. I don't need to." Her eyes glistened. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I needed you to see," I said quietly. "Not my wealth. My worth." I turned to leave. Behind me, the music swelled again, bright, celebratory, cruelly fitting. And for the first time in years, I walked away from her without looking back. The night air outside the Whitman estate was cool, carrying the faint scent of roses and rain. Behind me, music still floated through the open doors. Laughter, clinking glasses, and a woman trying to smile through the ruins of her own choices. I loosened my tie and walked toward my car, each step heavier with something that wasn't quite triumph. Victory feels different than I imagined. It doesn't roar, it exhales. 4 months, I had imagined this moment, the look on Melissa's face when she realized what she'd lost. I thought it would fill the hollow space she left behind. But now, standing under the pale glow of the streetlights, I felt something quieter instead. Not revenge. Not even satisfaction. Just release. I had carried her memory like an anchor for too long. Every success, every sleepless night, every risk I took had been a conversation with her ghost. Tonight, that conversation ended. My phone buzzed as I reached the car. A message. From Melissa. "I'm sorry. I didn't know what love meant back then. I hope you find peace." I stared at the words for a long moment, then typed a reply and erased it. Some stories don't need an ending written in words. They simply fade, like smoke in an open sky. I turned off the phone and looked out across the dark hills. The mansion behind me glowed like a monument to everything I used to envy. But I understood now, wealth doesn't measure worth, and love that depends on it isn't love at all. Melissa hadn't ruined my life. She had revealed it, shown me the weakness I needed to outgrow, the strength I needed to build. Losing her had been the fire that forged the man I became. I smiled faintly, not out of pride, but gratitude. Pain had been my teacher, and I'd finally learned the lesson. Sometimes you must lose what you love to find who you are. As I drove away, city lights shimmered in the distance, not as a reminder of what was gone, but of what was still possible. The road stretched ahead, quiet and unending, like a promise I was finally ready to keep to myself. I didn't know where I was going that night, only that I wasn't looking back. Maybe, somewhere in another version of our lives, Melissa and I might have made it work, if love had meant more than comfort. But this version, the one written in truth and consequence, had given me something rarer, peace. And as the night swallowed the last echoes of the wedding behind me, I realized something simple. She had taught me how to fall. But life had taught me how to rise. For more interesting videos, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel.